guys, so I just wanted to do another update video because some people have been asking about it and it's been a while now since I uploaded the last video, so I just want to check in. As you can see, I'm wearing liquid lipstick. I'm able to wear liquid lipstick on a regular basis now. I don't wear it every single day because I just don't really wear makeup every day, but I don't think it would be like an issue if I wanted to wear it every day, basically. Though I can't actually wear lipstick for the entire duration of the day because I still need to apply balms on a regular basis throughout the day. I'm actually wearing two different brands of liquid lipstick currently. One is Bourjois, I think is how you pronounce it, and I'm not quite sure what the name of the other brand is, but I'll include that information in the description below. You know, just out of interest, if this, you know, might not irritate other people's lips, for example. The condition of my lips is such that I no longer need to apply balms as frequently throughout the day, and I can go for extended periods of time each day where I don't actually need lip balm. I can't actually go for the entire duration of the day without applying balm and experiencing a resurgence of, you know, flaking or crusting. I haven't actually experienced any crusting in probably like over a year now actually, so it's not something that I actually encounter at all anymore. What I do sometimes still experience are like tiny flakes on my lips that kind of discriminate on a daily basis, but these aren't really like noticeable, and it just looks like, you know, any kind of chapped lips, not like EC as such. Yeah, so for maintenance, I'm still basically using the same routine that I was using previously and that I described at length in my previous videos. So that is Aquaphor Healing Ointment along with O'Keeffe's Lip Repair, and I tend to alternate these throughout the day. And as I explained in my previous video, I think applying the balm in a really thin layer has been kind of really integral, like in my recovery process. I've noticed now a few other people mentioning online that they had problems with their lips becoming very kind of soggy when they applied balms in a thick layer, and that was what I experienced as well. Like initially I think I was somewhat put off applying, you know, a thicker kind of occlusive balms like Aquaphor, because I noticed that whenever I would apply such balms, you know, my lips would kind of, the crusting or the like hyper keratinized areas of my lips, which was mainly the inner portion of both lips, you know, kind of extending to around here, would become very white looking, kind of like soggy, and the appearance is a bit similar to, like, you know, if you have a callus on your foot, for example, and then you go into the shower and you can notice how the callus will become sort of like swollen and kind of whitish looking. I think the same thing is basically happening with the EC. The kind of keratinized skin is taking up the water, it's absorbing the water, and that's what generates that kind of white look. However, the danger is if you over apply balms in this way, effectively the keratinized skin can become like loosened from the lip prematurely. That will lead to kind of like a premature desquamation, so the underlying skin is very raw. So I think, yeah, the over application of occlusive balms kind of accelerates the desquamation process, and so yeah, so applying in a thin layer, for me at least, kind of avoided the accelerated desquamation that can happen if you over apply an occlusive balm like Aquaphor. Like thicker balms are quite occlusive, so Vaseline, various other balms are included in this. Yeah, and effectively this leads to kind of a slower desquamation process, so the skin isn't, you know, getting into that kind of raw erythema state, which I think is partially prolonging the recovery process. So people were also asking me about some other things that I did during the time when my lips were quite severely crusted, and washing was like another issue. Yeah, so there was a question around should I wash my lips, or, you know, would that damage them in some way, would the crust fall off prematurely? And I think the key thing is that, you know, the crust provides this kind of... Yeah, so I changed locations because it was getting quite noisy indoors. But yeah, the crust provides this medium for the proliferation of bacteria, and I think, you know, well, at least I noticed when I had severe EC that after a certain period of time, the crust would develop this kind of distinctive, like, there's no easy way to say this and it's fairly embarrassing, but like this like distinctive like odor, you know, not a good one. Yeah, and washing the lips kind of helps with that, you know, it helps with the proliferation of bacteria. I wouldn't advocate like soaking the lips in water or going under a particularly vigorous shower head, but what I did was I used to kind of, yeah, so I used to like gently cup some water. Yeah, so I used to like cup some water gently into the palms of my hands and kind of like dip my lips like into the water, and just for a few seconds, and then to wait until my lips had dried like entirely before reapplying any balm or cream. I think that is important because when lip, you know, with the kind of keratinized skin is in that kind of fragile wet state, it's much easier to kind of accidentally dislodge some crust, so that was necessary for me. Yeah, and so I just want to talk about a few other things that I actually thought were helpful, but they weren't kind of like integral things like in my recovery process, I don't think. So after a certain period of time, I actually, for a really long period of time, I like avoided drinking out of glasses and cups entirely, and I just used straws. But during a certain point of my recovery, when my lips were starting to feel overall more robust, I switched back to drinking from cups, and I actually found that my lips improved after that point. Strange to say, because you would think that, you know, that maybe the lip would experience more trauma, but I actually found that drinking from bottles and cups. Yeah, so I was saying that I think drinking from bottles and cups actually facilitated the recovery process. It took me a long time to like work out why that might be. But I came across actually some research that was conducted on, you know, people with ichthyosis, which is a kind of severe like genetic skin condition. However, the similarity with EC is that ichthyosis, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, also produces kind of like hyperkeratinization of the skin. Although, yeah, it's actually extremely extensive, and people with this condition need to moisturize frequently, and actually many of the same treatments that work for EC actually work for ichthyosis as well. I don't want to get too much into this, but because the relevant information is not really necessarily like specific to ichthyosis, it's also applicable to lots of different dry skin condition and indeed normal skin as well. So like the information I came across, which I'll link below, says something to the effect of the most beneficial way to kind of, or facilitate like the normal process of, says something to the effect of the most beneficial way to facilitate the process of skin discremation in ichthyosis is to bathe, and that water actually is essential, or water contact is essential for normal skin discremation. And I actually don't really understand the science of this completely, but it's something to do with water kind of loosening bonds or something. Don't quote me on that. I'll link the information below, which explains the situation more thoroughly. But I think the essential point is that water contact is essential for normal skin discremation. So it was a considerable period of time when I had severe ESE that I was kind of trying to reduce the water contact with my skin extensively. And I now think that that might have been the wrong thing to do, because it seems that water contact is actually integral for the normal skin discremation process. And so it might be that actually by drinking water and things, and having liquids come into contact with your lips like on a frequent basis, that facilitates the kind of normal skin discremation process. Anyway, that's just my theory, but I can't really explain in any other way why I think drinking, switching from straw use to just drinking directly from bottles and cups would have been helpful. So another thing which I actually think may have benefited my lips was stopping, or making a conscious effort to stop the habit that I'd developed of touching my lips frequently. Because actually at no point in my recovery process did I intentionally remove the build-up. There were times where I sort of accidentally removed the build-up by sort of knocking a piece that was, maybe hanging loose or something. But I didn't intentionally, remove any section of the skin. That was because my EC was quite severe. When I broke out with the EC first, it was extremely severe, so I was quite afraid. I didn't know what would be underneath. I wasn't really aware at that point that the skin had certain amount of integrity underneath the crust. I was just afraid basically of taking the scabs off. So I don't recommend that at all, by the way. I appreciate it might be very difficult to, manage socially and things with the scabs, but I think if you manage with cream and things, it does make it slightly easier. Of course, it's not easy, but I think it doesn't really facilitate the recovery to remove the build-up. But even though I wasn't actively removing the scabs, I developed this habit of running my finger across my lips quite frequently throughout the day, because I guess I was very anxious, and I was I got it into my head, not that it was untrue, but I had this idea that the crusts were developing, and I was very anxious about the crusts coming back, because I think maybe other people can empathize or recognize the thought process of the cyclical nature of EC somehow gives you hope. So every time a cycle sort of completes, you kind of tend to think, this might be the time that actually the crusting is stopping, but of course that's not generally the case. So I guess I developed this anxious habit of running my fingers across my lips to check for crusts. But in the long run, I think that contributed to the inflammation in the lips, because I was effectively prodding my lips quite a lot, and I wasn't really aware of this. But when I made a conscious effort to kind of touch my lips as little as possible, the inflammation did seem to go down a bit.